Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Thank you, Baltimore. Live from Baltimore. Oh, it's my zechus to finally, after 8 years of saying shir in Chicago, 5 years of saying shir in Ramat Shemesh, to finally have my wife at one of my live shiurim. She's in Desert Nashim. Everybody give her a round of applause. All right, I want to thank my wife for coming in all the way from Eretz Yisrael to support me. Avigdor Fold, who's sitting right over there in the ladies section, also all the way from Eretz Yisrael, together with Yossi. You've never seen a chassid sitting in the ladies section. This is the first time in my life. You are in the Yossi Klein. I know you're not looking. You don't look around the Vabid, but you're in the ladies section. Get out of the ladies section. Okay, he's turning colors. That's exactly what I need now. Chayiv misum, avayish chaveri berabim. I want to say welcome to all the Ner Tamid people. The tremendous chizuk you gave me. I know many of the Ner Tamid people. I met them tonight. Told me they didn't learn a Jewish word maybe in their entire life or maybe in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And because of Fishel and Simcha, they started learning. And there's 30, 40 of them that continued without incentives into Bava Metzia. Many more are doing Amud Yomi, Halacha Yomi, all sorts of things. Beautiful, beautiful thing. So thank you, Ner Tamid. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the daf. And if it changed your life, tell other people about it, because I'm sure it did change your life. And if you don't want to admit it too bad, you better admit it. It's the truth. Torah changes people's lives. Let me make this straight, because it's not straight. That's better, I think. Okay. So, once again, thank you, Reb Fishel, for sponsoring this whole event. Amazing food, everything you do for MDY, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you put into the Gemara campaigns and to the other campaigns, and getting the Ner Tamid people involved, and everything else that you do. Just the physical support. When we were learning Masechtas Brachas, he used to come with a taxi from Yerushalayim, had the taxi stay out there, and would come in for the share and then do the same repeat over and over until finally the guy that drove the taxi, he became a big part of MDY. He still does the daf till this very day, and that was 4 years ago. So you're shkoyed for that. Who am I missing? Who drove in with you guys? Molandi, I said. We have Mark Ashkenazi, Yossi Klein, and Molandi. Who else? The three of you guys drove in from New York. Yishkoyach. And thank you everybody for coming.
To my teure Chaverim in Borough Park. Was hält sich?
Sponsors, yes, we have some sponsors. The Masechta is sponsored by Anonymous for the safe and speedy return of all the hostages. Parnas HaChodesh, Ahron Fraiman, it should be a zechus to rebel with the siyadta, dishmaya, and teaching Torah to Klal Yisroel. Amen. Parnas HaChodesh, Rafur Shleima, Elimlech ben Tzipora. Parnas HaChodesh, zechariah ben Moshe, zechariah bas Yosef. Parnas HaYoim, Kidnovations LLC in honor of my Uncle Reb Elchanan Pressman. This is a tremendous thank you to Fishel and Simcha Gross and their families for making sure I learn the daf every day. And as a zechus for Akiva Simcha ben Faiga. Is that? Where is he? Eli, Shkoyach, thank you so much. My wife and I want to thank you for sponsoring the turning of the daf for Akiva Simcha ben Faiga. Shkoyach, thank you very much. It means a lot. Finally met you in person. Wow. Shmira for the IDF, for the swift relocation of all innocent Gazans to Egypt. I did not read that first. And I hope the person from Ner Tamid who wrote me that beautiful, loving email about how all Gazans are innocent and just a few bad guys, I hope they're not here today, because come up and whack me over the head for reading that. I apologize to you. They are all innocent until dead, or whatever. The heart of the month, Anonymous, for the zechus, for an easy childbirth, for his daughter and a healthy. There are still crazy people out there, even in Ner Tamid, who think that those guys that dance in the streets of Gaza, when knowing and celebrating that the October 7th thing, they're all innocent. There are still people. You believe it? Yeah, they're still alive, and some of them daven in Ner Tamid, unfortunately. Okay, fine. What happened now? No. Okay. But 99% of the Ner Tamid guys are normal. I met them. They're all for real. Huh? Yeah, I did. And I got to tell you this real good story that somebody came over to me in Miami last night, real quickly. A true story. He said that he donated, for the campaign, he donated $5,050 because it's 10 times the gematria of his name. And then he got a phone call from the broker that this house that was on the market for $700,000, and he begged him to go down, They decided to sell it to him for $505, something like that, or $550. So match the number that he gave in a different multiple, but whatever. He wanted to tell me when you give, you get. That's how it works. Okay, we're only by the Mishnah. The Mishnah says like this. The Mishnah will just say, because we're in Baltimore, we can do this. Nachman Seltzer doesn't let me do this. The Mishnah is sponsored by, oh baby, something like that. I don't know. I'm not saying it in Rabbi Shabbos, we'll say it here. Wow, I am not going to read this list. This is a list. Okay, you guys read it real quickly to yourselves. And 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay, you got it. You see, it says $10,000 guys on the left. Isaac, I forgot how to pronounce his name. Memerji. Yitzi Greenwald, 10,000. David Weinstein, 10,000. No, the total for Miami is 130,000 right now, as it stands right now. So that's very nice. And we're moving on. Okay. Says the Mishnah. Now that we spent 7 minutes. Okay. So we're talking about people finding objects in the street. And you have to understand that it's not that easy to find something. It's a mitzvah in the Torah to find something but take care of it. So what happens if you find an animal? In those days, there were a lot of animals roaming around. People used animals for everything, for transportation, to plow their fields, for everything. There were the trucks, the tractors. You find an animal, now you have to feed it, you have to take care of it. So if you could rent it out, that's what you should do. Rent it, make some income, and with that income, you pay for the food. Otherwise, how are you going to pay for the food? It's going to cost you. Let's say you get a younger kind of animal that doesn't really produce. Yimacher, sell it. Because we don't want to stick you with the bill. You should return it to the owner. Make sure that you give it back to the guy without taking too much of the principal off. Because if you take off the principal, you're not going to return the animal that you found. It's going to be half the animal. So if you have no choice and it's costing you and it doesn't earn any money, sell it. And what do you do with the money? So we have a machlokes here. Interesting. One of the only times in Shas that we don't paskin like Rebbe Akiva. Rebbe Akiva was perhaps the greatest human being, the greatest Jew that ever lived. There's a Gemara that says he might have been bigger than Moshe Rabbeinu. But right up there with the top 3, 4, 5 of Klal Yisroel. Rebbe Akiva Omer, and the halacha is always like him. You could use the money. Oh, but if you could use the money, now you're responsible for the money, and if something happens to the money, you must pay for it. So, the Gemara is going to tell us it doesn't mean that you actually use the money. Even if you could use the money, you don't use the money. You can use the money. You're responsible for the money. Don't use the money. Therefore, since you cannot use the money, it's somebody else's money. You just sold somebody. You don't know who the owner is, but you sold it for him. Put the money aside. And if you can't use it and it gets lost, you are not responsible for the money. Ask the Gemara, well, you have to take care of this animal for 25 years. There must be a limit. There is a limit. 12 months. How many of you here in the room have somebody's coat that they left in your house 6 years ago? So there's a limit of how long you have to keep it. Says the Gemara, 12 months. We learned anything that produces and eats, like a cow and a donkey, you must take care of it for 12 months. What you do is you evaluate how much it is and you leave it alone as is. A calf that can't produce milk, it can't do anything. A young donkey. I guess we'll get back to this later. Okay, so here we go. We have a donkey that produces, we have a cow, so that's 12 months. The next thing is a calf and a siach, a young donkey, also don't produce. 3 months. So we have to remember this. Over here it says 3 months. From here on out, you evaluate it, you put the money on the side. You have male good for nothings. I'm just saying it because there's a bunch of Ner Tamid women here. I hate the men also. I make jokes about the men too. Don't worry about it. They don't produce. They don't lay eggs. Get rid of them after 30 days. After that, you could sell it, put the money aside. But a female chicken, like on top, here we just got the female, she lays eggs, so you got to take care of it for 12 months. We have another price that says 12 months for producing animals. Anything more than that, you set aside, you sell it, and that's it. We got a problem here. We said a second ago, 3 months, and all of a sudden, that's the first price of 3 months for the young donkey, and now we got 30 days. Okay? We said, before we said 30 days, and now we're going to say, anything that takes more money to take care of it than it can produce, instead of 30 days, what does it say? 3 days. So we got a contradiction between the first brisa and the second brisa. First brisa says 3 months for a donkey, 30 days. The second one says 30 days for a donkey. Big contradiction. The first brisa says about a chicken, a male chicken, 30 days. Second brisa says 3 days. Says Gemara, we have a contradiction between the egel and the egel. We have chicken. What do we do? It's not such a big question. When it, here, look what he did, Yoshi. When it grazes by itself, you get 3 months because it's not a big deal for you. When you have to feed it on a plate or whatever, it's 30 days. When you must, I'll tell you the story. I wasn't thinking about doing it, and maybe I should use my filter here, but I can't control myself, so I'll tell you the story. I'm not going to say the exact story because I can't say it. You'll understand from the story, but basically, the word in the Gemara was pituma. And I translated the word, because I speak Yiddish, I translated it in Yiddish. And I realized, I said the word pituma and a cow, and it just sounded terrible. It was just, they turned colors, some laughed, some giggled, nervous giggle. So then, what happened was, some guy took that saying, this line that I said that didn't come out good, and he made it into like a meme, and he spread it around. And I thought, oh, that was it. That's the end of MDY. And a year goes by, and a therapist comes to the shir in Ramat Bet Shemesh, and he says, I love your shir. There's a certain type of client that I have that I sent to your shir, and it's very therapeutic for them. In fact, I sent over 100 patients to your shir, and most of them are healed. He doesn't tell me what he does and how he does. I said, you're full of it. He says, I swear to you. I could swear on a Sefer Torah, he tells me. I sent to you over 100 people. Okay. And I want to tell you something. You know why I came to Yeshir? I got a meme once, something about a cow, like that meme that I thought was going to put me out of business. He brought 100 people to this shir because of that meme. That's how Akash Baruch Hu works. When you think, etc., etc. But this is the word, it reminded me, it triggered me. I had trauma from this word. Pituma. It's not a contradiction between the chickens. Large chickens eat a lot. You got to get rid of them quickly. If they're younger, so you get 30 days. The large ones just eat and eat, so you 3 days get rid of them. Next. An animal that doesn't produce. you must return the item the way you found it. Make sure you do that. Don't feed one calf to many calves. In other words, if you find 10 calves, don't use one for food, because let's say you find 10 calves, what are you going to do? Return 9? That's not what you found. Don't waste the donkeys and the geese. I'm not going to go back to the picture. There's male geese and not whatever. You get the idea what a male and a female, they almost look the same. Fine. Says the Gemara, we're on the last line of Chav Ches Amud Beis. By the way, in case there's anybody in this room that didn't start Daf Yomi yet, today's a perfect day to start Daf Yomi. I'll tell you why. We started MDY Avodah Zarah Daf Chav Ches, this Daf. Why? Because we had the inspiration that day to do it, and we started immediately without a new Mishnah, without a new parak, not a new Masechta, in the middle of a sugya. So, if you're thinking about joining Daf Yomi, today's a perfect day to start. It's also one of the easiest prakim in Shas. Every child knows it. It's a great time to start, so you know how to learn with your son. Instead of your son teaching you, you can teach him. What do you do with the money? Says the Gemara, so Rashi says right away, it doesn't mean that you use the money. Rashi says, if you can and you could use this money, then it becomes like yours and you are responsible. If you cannot use the money, im avdu pater. If it's lost, and we have to remember this word lost. Lost usually means you're sort of responsible, because let's say if you're a Shem Sacher, you're a paid custodian, you're responsible for a loss. If you're supposed to wash something and it gets lost, you're responsible. This case, because you cannot use it, you can't use the money, then you're not paid. You have nothing with this money. Now, if you could use money, but you don't use it, you have a certain benefit from that. What's the benefit? So people like when I tell them business advice. Okay, so this is my unsolicited advice. You can laugh at it. You could say, oh, it's simple. But a lot of times people ask me, how can I get into business? Yeah, into real estate, let's say. So I tell them the same thing every time, basically. Well, depends who the person is. One of the biggest secrets to doing well in business and getting involved in a deal is if you have money. You need money to get involved in a deal, right? So if you could borrow money easily, then you could jump into deals. So let's say there's a house that went for, it's a great deal. If you don't have the money to buy it, then you could just watch on the side and you can tell everybody 10 years later, oh, I could have bought that house for $100,000. Everybody comes to me in Ramat B'Church, I could have bought this whole building for $150,000. You know how cheap apartments were in Ramat B'Church? And today, the $3 million. Okay. So the trick is to have money. So how do you have money? You need saving. The difference between people that are successful and have that pot of cash to go into a deal are the people that know how to save. People that spend their money on cars and flat screen TVs and all that stuff, they never have money when it comes time to jump into the deal, when it's necessary. You hear about a good business there. It's just my 2 cents of advice. I don't know how to save money, so I'm allowed to tell you guys, you save money and whatever. But it's true. If you have that money, and that's what the Gemara is saying over here. If you have that pot of cash, you're not using it, but it's there. And you know that when the time comes, I could jump in and use that money for a deal. That gives me hana. And that hana makes you responsible for that money, even though you never use the money. Says the Gemara, there's a beautiful, famous Rav Yosef, and here it is. The Itmar. This could be a contradiction to Rav Yosef. Why? Because if you're not using the money, you are potter. But wait a minute. You should be chayiv according to Rav Yosef. Why? Because Rav Yosef says, let's just say this by heart. Rav Yosef says, anybody that watches an item for somebody else, he becomes automatically a Shem Sacher. So he is chayiv for Gneva and Aveda. We just said you're potter from Aveda. Why are you a Shem Sacher? The Torah tells you, if you find a Metzia, pick it up and give it back. So you're doing the guy a favor. Why in the world do you become a paid custodian that if it gets lost or stolen, you're chayiv? Says Rav Yosef, you know what? I'm going to show you the clip. I'll remind you. It's the famous clip. Here, let me just show you. That's right, Reb Fishel. I hear you. I hear you. Shalmi guy. This is just a continuation that a very large chicken is 3 days, and the younger guys are 30 days. Okay. There's a concept called oisik b'mitzvah patur min mitzvah. If you're dealing with a mitzvah, such as hashavas aveda, but it means physically dealing with it. It doesn't mean that you took the watch home and you put it in a drawer, and now you don't have to do any other mitzvah. It means you're physically feeding the animal because otherwise it will die. So you're physically dealing with it. Let's say you're wearing tzitzis, you're wearing a talis, you're wearing tefillin on your head, like we're really supposed to wear tefillin all day, but we don't these days because we don't know how to keep our bodies clean, etc. Let's say you're wearing tefillin. Are you patur from doing other mitzvahs? Says Taisus, absolutely no. Because you're not dealing with it, you're not busy. Only when you're busy with a mitzvah. So if you're dealing with Hashavas Aveda, knock on the door. Comes the guy, says, charity, I need to donate money to MDY. Now you can say, no, I'm dealing with Hashavas Aveda, I don't have to give you anything. So that hana, that you could tell the poor guy, sorry, not today, that gives you a benefit, and that benefit makes you a Shem Sachar, and now you are chayiv b'gneva v'aveda. If it gets lost, you are responsible. Here's the clip. Let me see if I can get to it. Green, blue, you get the idea. Here we go. You ready?
Rabbi Mekashem Dami.
No.
What another does he have? Rav Yosef. Oh, Mekashem Misachar Dami. In that I know, yeah. I'm in the middle of learning. I can't give you anything. I
started out with the wrong guy. He actually comes to the
Do I have to give him tzedakah now? I'm in the middle of learning Torah. So I said, I tell him, mitzvah. He says, but Rashi Menachos, I didn't know this Rashi. He said, Rashi Menachos says that in the middle of learning, you have to give. So he's right, in a way. There's a Gemara.
He also comes collects money with us every morning.
In the middle of learning,
it's a different story.
Because learning is to do mitzvahs. When you're doing a mitzvah, like we're talking about, he's in the middle
I told him I need you to come to my shir and pretend you're collecting money. So he said, okay, if you give me 400 shekel, I'll come. So what am I going to do? Say no? Anyway. Oh, I have to shut this off. Fine. Just as a side note, he's right and he's wrong. He said that when you're in the middle of learning, you have to stop and give money to tzedakah. He's wrong because Ramesh Shterberg says that's true only in a case where the guy's dying and he needs money right now. But in a case that it's convenient for him to come and bother you while you're learning, you don't have to give him. Tell him to come back later. So in this case, when he walked in the basement from middle of shir, you tell him, get out of here. I don't have to give you. I'm in the middle of learning Torah. I don't have to give you money. It happens to be that this particular guy, he collects money every day, but he drives a brand new 2024 electric car and whatever. We still give him. He's a great guy. Everybody says, but I understand. You have a nicer car than me. Why should I give you money? He says, I have a 9-to-5 job and I have some chayvus and I need to pay off my chayvus. Help me pay my chayvus. And everybody gives him. Okay. So he certainly cannot come in the middle of learning. But otherwise, yeah. Says the Gemara. We have a machlokes between Rabbi and Rav Yosef. A guy that watches a lost object, is he considered a shomer chinam? And a shomer chinam does not pay for gneva aveda, only pshia. Rav Yosef says, maybe I have the chart. Let's see. Oh, here's the chart. Yeah. You can go over the chart yourself, see the difference between a shomer chinam, shomer sachar, and the shoyel. We're going to be talking about a shoyel also in a minute, so we can leave that up there. So the question is, according to Rav Yosef, he gets paid in a way. He's getting paid because he doesn't have to give the poor person money. So if he's getting paid, then he has more responsibility. His responsibility is that if it gets lost, he must pay for it. Why do we say that if it gets lost, he doesn't have to pay? Rav Yosef can answer. So Rav Yosef will say, listen, everybody agrees, Reb Tarfon, Reb Akiva, they both agree that this guy is considered a shomer sachar because he found this aveda, now he doesn't have to give a poor person money. So where's the machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon? Ki pligi ba'ainsim the shoyl. Is this guy considered not only, let's take it up a step. In this chart right over here, do we go down to a shoyl? Does he become a borrower? Why does he become a borrower? Because if he could use the money, he just borrowed money. Now, if you're a borrower, now you're chayav for everything. Even a oinus, even something that's not in your ability to stop, you're chayav. The only time you're potter with a shoyl is if you borrow a car and it dies while you're driving it. But any other oinus, somebody breaks the window, a kid smashes it, whatever it is, you're chayav. Meisa machmas ulach, if it dies while you're using it, then you're... My wife is still listening. It's unbelievable. First time. Unbelievable. Okay, says the Gemara. Now I'm thrown off. I can't learn in front of her. It's crazy. She's never seen me learn before. You know, I learn at home by a glass. So she watches it. She knows. No talking, but she can wave once in a while. That's what it is. What? What you say about a shir? Correct. First time she's watching me give a shir. Says the Gemara. Rabbanan says, Reb Tarfon says, since Rabbanan allow you to use the money that you found, you didn't really find the money. What did you find? You found the animal, but you sold the animal. Now you have cash. You can use the cash until the guy picks up the cash. He says, "Oh, I can prove it was my animal. Give me the cash." So since you can use the money, even though you don't use the money, you become a borrower, not a shomer sacher. Sorry. Then you're a shomer. Rabbi Akiva says, no. You're not permitted to use the money. Therefore, you're not a shomer. As the Gemara, okay, so this is a freebie because we have here 2, 4, 6, 8, like almost 10 lines of just a lot of words, very wordy. It's almost like the Gemara knew this is going to be a parak for small kids, and just instead of saying a 4-word question, like the Gemara always does and confuses us, it goes out of its way and just repeats itself. And so let's do this slowly. Here we go, or fast. The words in the Mishnah, when Reb Akiva says, since you cannot use the money, therefore, if it gets lost, you're chayav in responsibility. That only fits if we're talking about a shomer sacher. If we're talking about a shoyl, whether or not he's a shoyl, the wording doesn't fit. And here the Gemara explains. If you say that the whole machlokes between Reb Akiva and Reb Tarfon is whether or not this guy has to pay for a lost object or stolen object, since you cannot use it, therefore you're not responsible. And the Gemara continues. I would think that he's a shomer sacher. Why would I think he's a shomer sacher? Because Rabbi Yosef says, since he doesn't have to give a poor person money, he turns into shomer sacher, and therefore he's chayav for gneva aveda. You hear how many words are going on here? One long-winded question. Therefore, now that I know that you cannot use it, shomer sacher have it. Therefore, he's not a shomer sacher. He's not chayav gneva aveda. But if you say that everybody agrees, like you just answered, that in gneva aveda, even everybody holds like pligi the chayev, he's a shomer sacher, like Rabbi Yosef. Everybody agreed that you're chayev. Keep pligi bun to the shoyl, and the whole machlokes is whether or not he's a shoyl. And a shoyl, there's a question: is he a shoyl or not a shoyl? And if he's a shoyl, he's chayev for oinus. How do you say oinus in English? Accident. Okay, accident. This must be a better way. A shoyl is chayev even for accidents. My lefich the Rebbe Kiva. So the word lefich doesn't fit in. This is how it should say it. Don't use it. Without saying lefich. Since you can't use it, lav shoyl. So he's not a borrower. And if he's not a borrower, he's not chayev to. He's not responsible for it. Lefichach the Rebbe Kiva lamali. I don't know. This might be a record in Shas. One of the longest questions to explain a simple idea. Says Gemara Akiva. This is what it meant. He even in Charlie Rabbanon Shtamush B'Gavayu. And this Rabbi said, don't be scared. We already explained this concept. Now what? Since Rabbanon say you're permitted to use the money is in a cup. You didn't use the money, but it's in this cup. Since you could use it, then you become what? Chay b'achrayos. That's why you're responsible. As the Gemara of the Kutani, we're talking about Aveda here, which would infer, you can infer from that if it's an accident to oinus, you're potter. You tell me the whole machlokes is an accident. So why does it mention the word avdu? Lost would seem that we're in a different category. We're in the category of not accident. Oinus is one step below. If the Gemara mentions lost is where? In the middle. We should go down a step to Shail, talk about Oinus. Says the Gemara, you're right, we are talking about Oinus. Kidarabba, Damarabba, Nignevu, Belistim Izuyan. What does the Gneva mean? Gneva means this thing. You know what? I'll show you the old one, the original. And special for tonight, this is Listim Izuyan, held up at gunpoint, which is an accident. Nothing you can do about it. Can't get out of it. There must be a better word than accident.
Extenuating circumstances.
Extenuating circumstances. Okay, yeah, that's not inadvertent. Unavoidable. Something you couldn't prevent. No. Too many words. What are you, the Gemara now? A lot of words. Huh? A guy holding you up by at gunpoint is an act of God or an act of a guy holding you up by gunpoint? Okay, it's out of your control, whatever it is. Says the Gemara. We're not talking about a typical gneva that you had more control on it. You could have closed your doors, locked your car. We're talking about a guy came and held you up, and here's the new picture. Held you up at gunpoint. And Avdu, what's the case of getting lost? His ship sunk. There's two stories. I can tell you the better one. I'll tell you the not nice one. A guy comes to a rabbi and he says, Rabbi, he's crying. He says, Rabbi, my ship sunk. So the Rav says, he pulls out his Rav stuff and he says, Hashem has a reason for everything. Hashem has better plans for you. It's going to work out for the best. Trust me, I know somebody that his ship sunk, and the next day, 9 months later, he had a golden this, and he found this, and it was much better for him. And this, he goes on his whole spiel, this, that. So the guy says, thank you very much, Rabbi, because I was very worried about you. In fact, my ship is still there. It's your ship that sunk. And the rabbi faints. And he comes to, and he says, it was easy for me to give you Moser and tell you how Hashem loves you and Hashem has this great plan, but when it came to me, not so much. That's the not so nice story. There's a nicer one, but we're in Baltimore now, so whatever. We're just gonna go with that one now. So, says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. The famous Rav Yehuda, whose Rebbe was Rav, and his Rebbe was Shmuel, he says, I heard from my Rebbe Shmuel, halacha kirb tarfin, which is amazing. Usually the halacha is Rebbe Akiva, over here, the halacha is like Rebbe tarfin. Now what? If you find the money, or you find an animal, and you trade it in for cash, you get to use the cash. It's a massive chiddush. It's not your animal. But what are you supposed to do? Just look at the cash for 25 years, it's sitting in your house. You get to use it. Rebbe Akiva argues, and the halacha is like Rebbe tarfin. Says the Gemara's story. If that's the case, could we infer from that to another case? Biyad Rechava had in his hand, he had money that was owned by the orphans. So he asked the question in front of Rav Yosef, can I use this money that's really owned by the orphans? I'm taking care. Listen, they're not going to be bar mitzvah for 3 years. Let me make some business. I'll make money and whatever. What do you think he answered? Can we learn halacha from this halacha right here that we just learned? Again, I found a cow I can't deal with it. It's too much. It's too expensive. I sell the cow for $1,000. I take the $1,000 and invest it in real estate. I'm allowed to. I have mesayem. Unfortunately, they gave me $1,000. It's sitting in my shelf. I can use it. Why not? It's like the Hashav Saveda. Does anybody see a difference? So Rav says there's no difference. Hachi Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Halach Tarfin. Look, if you could use it when you find an object, you can use it from the assignment. Amalei Abaya was Rav Yosef's Talmud. He says, wait a minute, Rabbi, you're wrong. That's only when you trade a cow in, you first deal with it, you feed it, and you realize it's not going to work out. So you sell it. Nobody showed up to pick it up. So you sell it, and you take the cash. Now you have cash, you're going to use it. And the reason is, because you were very consumed with it in the tarach bar. It hurt you, took time out of you, so you get to use the money. What if you found a wallet full of cash? Did anybody give you a right to use the cash when you find a wallet full of cash? No. It's only when you trade a cow in for cash. Then you're allowed to. Oh, and yasam is like finding a wallet of cash. Cash you don't have a right to use. Only cash that comes from a trade-in, because there's a tircha. And these Yisayim damu. Amalei zil, get out of here, says Rav Yosef. They're not allowing me to give you a heter. Okay. There's a big machlokes here. This giant taisus. I saved you. You don't have to do this whole taisus. Look how long it is. On Daf Chav Tes, giant taisus. I had a Rebbe in Cheder. He had a ruler, something like this, and he would measure taisus. He says, if taisus is longer than this, we're not going to do it. That was his thing. This is like double that. Okay. But Taisus says in the beginning that the halacha is like Rav Yosef, that a shomer aveda, somebody who watches a lost item, he has a halacha of a shomer sachar. And all the way in the bottom, he brings a shita, another rishonim that say that the halacha is like Rabba. So what do you do? Is a shomer aveda like a shomer sachar? There's a shomer chiram. So the Ramah says, since we don't know, so it's like any suffix mammon. But I just want to tell you a secret. There's a very, very cool halacha when it comes to chayshim mishpat, and that is, anytime you have a suffix mammon, you don't know what to do with monetary dispute or a shaila, so you have to bring Adam. But there's a halacha in chayshim mishpat that says, kimli. Kimli. What does that mean? It means that if there's one cheetah somewhere that says like me, I go like that cheetah. All of a sudden I go like that cheetah. You can say, I go like that cheetah, and you prove otherwise. So you can say, oh, I hold like Rav Yosef, or I hold like Rabba, whatever fits my, whatever side I'm on. I can say like this, like that in Chayshim Mishpat. The Ramah doesn't bring the Kimli. I'm just throwing it out there. Says the Mishnah, sponsored by Shlomo Lalazarian's friend, something about oh baby at the end. Matzah Sfarim. If you find a sefer. Now, in the time of the Gemara, sefer meant like what we have today, sefer Torah. They didn't have paper. They had parchment. And everything was handwritten. If you find the sefer very, very valuable, you must read from it every 30 days, otherwise it's going to get moldy. Remember, there's a lot of amaratzim in those days. If you don't know how to read, goylalim. Oh, I got to show you this picture. Hold on. I'll show you this thing that I didn't have time to go through this. So I wasn't sure if I should show it or not. I'm just going to go through quickly because Yoshi spent a lot of time making it, unfortunately. Rabbi Rav Yosef, Shomer Aveda, here is a guy that watches an Aveda like a Shomer Sachar or like a Shomer Chinam. If it's like a Shomer Chinam, Gnev Aveda Potter, Shomer Sachar, Gnev Aveda Chai. This is a good one. But according to everybody, when you're not allowed to, Potter, whatever it means. Okay. Gemach. Okay. If a guy finds Sfarim, he finds a Sefer on the left, he must read from it every 30 days. And on top, if you know the new line, the new MDY line is, Bester Zayin, a Pashat at Talmud Chacham. It's better to be a simple Talmud Chacham than a genius Amaretz. So it says on his hat, on his yarmulke, it says Chasheva Amaretz. He's a Chasheva Amaretz. Okay. So if you find Sfarim like this, you have to read from them every 30 days. V'meni daily Christ, he's Amaretz, Goylala. You have to roll it up. You have to unroll it, like go through the whole Sefer Torah every 30 days, right? Just tell you a story that cannot happen with me in MDY. This guy was schmoozing during Kriyas Torah, right? Schmoozing. And then they said, Yamoid, whatever his name is for Chamishi. And he didn't hear. He's like busy talking. And then somebody's like, hello, you got get up there. So as he's walking by me, I said, hey, the Sefer Torah is really heavy. So he gets up there. Just made that up this morning. Never happened. Okay. So, you know, when you go to the Smedra, sometimes you open up a sefer, you open up a Gemara, especially Bava Metzia, you'll see Eli Metzia is like really dark, and you look at the rest of the sefer, it's like white, nice, brand new pages. Why? Because people learn that same page over and over. It says over here, if you're going to use somebody's sefer Torah, like those kinds of, you can't read it over and over. You're going to ruin it. It's very delicate. The other big concern is, so if it's your first time, if it's your first time learning, you can't learn from it. Why? Because you're going to spend a lot of time understanding it. And when you spend a lot of time understanding what's going to happen, you're going to spit a little bit, this is going to drop, you're going to spill a little water, you're going to ruin a sefer. So you can't. If you're going to go through it quickly, fine. Interesting that the Nemuka Yosef brings the Ramban that says that when it comes to this halacha is about Torah, Nevi'im and Ksubim. Because the first time you learn from it is very difficult, or more difficult, and then once you know it, you just fly through it. He says by Gemara it's different. Gemara, even after 100 times, he says, that's his lashon, even 100 times, you still come up with new chidushim, and you're still trying to understand what's going on here, and so you're working it. And therefore, there's no difference between the first time and the 20th time and the 100th time. And therefore, it's all the same. And you could use it. Because that's how it's meant to be. There's no going fast in Gemara. Matzah ksus, if you found a garment. Now, in the time of the Gemara, garments, again, imagine a person weaving a garment from scratch. It took many, many days to make one garment. It was thousands of dollars every garment. That's why people only had one or two garments to begin with. So they would ear it out. They would do all sorts of funny things with it. Matzah ksus, you found the garment. Menara, you're responsible for this thing. It's in your house. Take care of it. What do you do when you find the garment? You air it out every 30 days. And you put it out for the need of the garment. Don't show off with it. Look what I got. I got this Armani thing. And people will admire you for that. I just heard today, I just saw a clip, a moment, and I told to my friends here, this guy, the podcast, one of Meaningful People or something, talks about finances, and he says that he knows many people that cannot make their payments, but nevertheless they have $300,000 cars. And he says, why? Why do people need $300,000 cars? He says, because literally today, it was like a snippet to show you what this podcast is about. I didn't see I just saw this 1 minute thing. He said, very good. So people do that because they don't feel good about themselves. So they want to boost their own ego in front of other people. But he says, think about it. What are you doing? You're poking their eyes out. You're showing them, I'm driving a Bentley and you're not. So now they despise you. You try to get their respect. And instead, they despise you for it. So why would you get yourself into debt for that? Why do you need this stuff? And I was just thinking here, I'm showing off this nice thing. I can't even afford it, but I'm there. Look, it makes me, go around with the $20,000, $30,000 purse to impress other people, to poke other people's eyes out. If you ever notice, very, very wealthy people never go with those fancy purses or anything. They don't care. The Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, white t-shirt, Zell, or whatever his name is from Facebook. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's only the mediocre, the medium wealthy people, they need to show off and then buy the $50,000 purse. Okay. Says the Gemara, I had a great joke about wives, but I'm going to try to control myself in front of her. I'm just kidding. I didn't have any joke. Be careful when you find silver vessels and copper vessels. So you're supposed to use it so it doesn't get rusted out or whatever, but make sure you don't wear it out. You don't be meshachik it. Means rub it that you ruin it. If you find golden vessels and glass vessels, and the Gemara is going to explain. Lo yiga b'hem, achi yav Eliyahu. Make sure Eliyahu Navi comes. Now I said this thing in the Hebrew one. I just realized afterwards that yav Eliyahu. It's a little bit of gaiva, but I'll give people a reason to believe that there's a problem, a gaiva problem here. Because I was saying that I heard from a mechanech once that don't spend a lot of time, he's telling Rabbeim, don't spend a lot of time on the really, really good kids in the class because they're going to do well anyway. And the best you could do is you might ruin them. Let them just go. But what you need to be very careful with is the kids that are weak in the class. Those are the kids that are like glass. And if you say the wrong word, you break them. And I saw from this people I'm looking here in this room that told me, my Rebbe said, I'm dumb, so I'm really dumb. I said, no, you're not dumb. You're one of the smartest people I know. But his Rebbe told me he's dumb. That's it. In his head, he's dumb. Or somebody came over to me today. I think he's still in the room. He said he hasn't learned, and I actually read his email, and he gave me a video today. Here. His Rebbe told him, you'll never make it in Gemara. So he never learned Gemara for 30 years, 20, 30 years, until he found this year. He's here. Are you here today? Where are you? Here you are. Raise your hand. True story? Maisa Shahaya, here he is. So you got to be careful with these kids because you say one dumb statement like that and you break him like a piece of glass. And for you, I'm going to say it, it's not gaiva, I'm saying it as the joke. And I didn't realize it in Hebrew, and I read it again. Achiyava Eliyahu. Until MDY with Eli Stefansky comes. And brings those broken glasses back. Not gaiva at all. Matzah sakoi kupa. If a person finds a sack or a box, my wife she doesn't know where to bury herself. Why do you have to say these things? You embarrassed. You embarrassed, Faiga? No, not at all. Okay. If you're a super important person who doesn't take out the garbage because he's so chashav and you don't do these things, so you find one of these boxes, you just schlep a box in the middle of the street. Everybody in the room is fine with this. We don't understand it, but there are people with a lot of ego, a big ego, and they can't carry certain things. So you don't take it. You don't have to return it. Rabbi said we have to put the pedal to the metal. Omar Shmuel, if you find tefillin in a marketplace, sham demeyim umanichon la'alter. You could sell it immediately and you could wear the tefillin. Now I want to say this joke, even though you might. It's not a joke, it's a story, but my wife never heard it, so I'm going to say it for her. There was an Arab who was trying to sell tefillin to a Jewish guy, and the Jew said, let me see the tefillin. He takes out the tefillin, he says, okay, he puts on his tefillin shel yad, he puts on the tefillin shel rosh, and he tells the Arab, he says, okay, I got the left arm, where's the right arm? And the guy goes, I don't know. He says, oh, you're missing half the pair. You got to sell it to me for 25 shekel, and that's what happened. So if you find tefillin, you are a Jew and you're going to take care of it, but you don't want to. You're allowed to sell it right away. Masa Ravina, ask Ravina. Masa Svarim. What if you find the sefer? You're supposed to read it every 30 days, not that it shouldn't get ruined. If you don't know how to read, you are supposed to wind it up, unwind it, let it air out. So the Gemara infers you should wind it, unwind it. Doesn't say anywhere that you're allowed to sell it. How come now we're saying you're allowed to sell it? There was a cipher by the name of Bar Chavu. He would sell tefillin. You could find tefillin all day long. It's very hard to find a Sefer Torah or Sefer. Happens to be that I wanted to buy a Sefer Torah during Corona, like right before, and I set money aside. I wanted to be Mekayim the mitzvah. By the way, in our days, it's not the biggest mitzvah in the world to write your own Sefer Torah. It might be, I'm just throwing it out there, it might be a bigger mitzvah to buy Gemaras and give them out to people. Because since we all have Sfarim today, and in those days they would learn from the Sefer Torah, it was a huge mitzvah. It's not as big as you think. But I wanted to buy my own Sefer Torah, and this is not a hint for Yossi Klein to buy me a present, a gift of Sefer Torah, because I wanted to be Mekayim the mitzvah myself of writing Sefer Torah, and I refused. I don't want anybody to buy it from me. I want to write it myself. I'm just telling you the story because I finally located a cipher that I liked his writing and everything was perfect. It worked out, and he was about to finish the Sefer Torah in a half a year. And by the time he was done, he already upped his price. He doubled his price, and he found 2 other clients. All thing. It's just very, very difficult to write a Sefer Torah. Much easier to find tefillin. The poskim in our day say that it's the opposite. That tefillin, it's hard to find something that you really like for tefillin, and therefore the halachas are almost reversed. But it reminds me of a story in All for the Boss. What was his name? Yosef Yaakov Herman, something like that. So he has a story there where his daughter has a story. He really wanted this one sofer. I think his name was Reuben Sanel. It's not the best sofer in Yerushalayim, and he gave him money to write tefillin. And one night, a guy comes to him and says that he had a dream that his father came to him. Reuben Sanel sofer came to him in a dream and said, "Listen, I took money from Rabbi Herman, I never wrote him his tefillin. Go ask him Mechila." So the son says, "I want to ask you Mechila, but there's a little twist." He says, "I'm never going to pay you. I can't pay you. I don't have the money to pay you. And sorry, I hope you're Michael, my father." So Rabbi Herman said, "Yeah, I'm Michael." But the story goes on that one day an old man gave Rabbi Herman a pair of tefillin, and Rabbi Herman wanted to give it to this bacher that didn't have tefillin, and he said, "But first give it to the guy to check it." They checked the tefillin, and it was Nesanel's Parshias. He was the one that made the tefillin, and he said Hashem has a way of what it comes around, and he eventually got the tefillin from Nesanel. But there's something about tefillin, getting nice pair of tefillin. Okay. One thing I remember from when I was younger, when my bar mitzvah, my parents didn't have money, but my father went out of his way and he saved money, and it was a whole thing that he'd get me the best sofer, the best tefillin. He wanted to show me the importance of chavivas hamitzvah, not just buying the cheapest tefillin out there, the opposite, getting the most expensive tefillin possible. Torah Rabbanon, hashoyel sefer Torah mechaveroi. If you borrow a sefer Torah from your friend, right? It happened during Corona. We all had sefer Torahs in the backyards and everything. You borrow a sefer Torah. You're not allowed to lend it to anybody else. You're allowed to open it and read from it. Don't be if this is the first time you're learning from it, don't learn like that, like we explained before, because you're going to ruin it. Don't let 2 people read from it together, because one is going to pull this way and the guy is going to pull that way. Interesting. The Kuzri says, why do Jews shake? You ever notice this? Shake during davening. Why do they shake? The way he explains it, some people say no, some people say the bren from the fire. He says because people used to learn 10 people from one Sefer Torah, and they would all like move around to look over the other guy, and they was constantly moving to see what's going on in the Sefer Torah, and that's why it became like a habit, maybe even a bad habit, who knows. Fine. Says the Gemara. If you ask your friend to watch a Sefer Torah, you don't tell him, he's not borrowing it from you, he's doing you a favor. He's watching it for you. That person is responsible for it. So he should unwind it every 12 months. He opens it and he reads from it. If he opened it up for himself, also he's not allowed to read from it. It's a contradiction. It seems like a contradiction. It says you're allowed to read from it, then it says you're not allowed to read from it. If it's brand new, you get every 30 days, you have to open it. If it's the oldest Sefer Torah, 12 months. It doesn't matter if it's new or old, you open it up every 12 months. Says the Gemara, Omar Mar. If you borrow a Sefer Torah from your friend, don't lend it to somebody else. Ask the Gemara, why are you telling me a case of Sefer Torah? Sefer Torah is something that's very delicate. Tell me something that has a little bit more whatever to it. Afilu mili nami, anything. Anything that you borrow from your friend, you're not allowed to give it to somebody else. I'm Rish Lakish. If you borrow something, you're not permitted to lend it to somebody else. If you rent a car from somebody, you're not allowed to give it to your friend to drive. Rabbi Sai, here's a brand new 3D animation. And my dream is to really have more of these per daf, but more of these means more cash. Guy like this, this guy works for us full time. It's like $70,000 a year. I hope it's worth it. I'm hoping that for zvachim menachas, kachim, these kind of things, he's really gonna. But here's the piece for today. Enjoy. This is a person borrowing something, and after he borrows it, he lends it to somebody else. We had to cut it short. He wasn't finished, but I said, "Hey, I got a shear going. Send it as is." So here it is. It's without sound yet. Tomorrow it's gonna have sound. Okay, that's it. Shkoyach. You see, a little bit of humor in the middle of a sugya doesn't hurt. And Bezer Hashem, one day, I was inspired by Fishel. He's the one that did this 3D animation pre Bava Kama. And I said, you know what, if he did it, I got to jump into it. And I hired that guy. But sometimes it helps the sugya, sometimes it's just humorous. But we'll be able to combine the two. Bezer Hashem, every day we'll have at least one piece. That's the goal. So the point is, in that case, it's also for you. If you borrowed a car from a gemach, a Bentley gemach, you're not allowed to lend it to somebody else. So why does the Mishnah have to talk about a Sefer Torah? If you borrow a Sefer Torah, of course you're not allowed to lend it to somebody else. Says the Gemara, Sefer Torah is a big chiddush. I would think, there's a halacha. If you go into a shul and you see tefillin in the shul, and you didn't wear tefillin, you're allowed to use the guy's tefillin without asking permission. Why? Because the owner of the tefillin would want you to wear his tefillin. He wants a mitzvah to be done with his tefillin. What about a sefer? Usually the halacha is yes, as long as you're careful not to, wrinkle the papers, whatever. There's certain exceptions to the rule, of course. A lulav esrog you're allowed to, unless it's a lot of people. They're going to ruin the lulav esrog, unless you're using a lot. We had a guy in Ramat Shemesh, every single day would come into the Shemesh, wear somebody's tefillin. And the guy actually, the owner of the tefillin, was not happy. He said 1 or 2 times, but every single day for months, get your own tefillin. So you have to know. But there is such a concept. I want a mitzvah to be done with my tefillin. Let me ask you a side. Let me ask you a question. I'm looking for answers. Think about this. Could I use your umbrella thinking, hey, I'm going to use your umbrella. You probably want a mitzvah done with your umbrella, don't you? Here, it says in the Gemara, I want mitzvahs done with my stuff. Can I use your umbrella without permission? Yes or no? No, why? What's the difference? Huh? Beautiful. That's the answer. A lot of you are saying that. I want a heftzah shel mitzvah. I want a lulav, which is a mitzvah, to be used by somebody else as a mitzvah. I don't want my car, thank you very much, to be used without permission because, you're going to be mezakem me in a mitzvah of chesed. No, thank you. My car is not a mitzvah. Don't do favors. Don't do me any favors by giving me chesed. Okay, it's an obvious answer, but not that obvious. Says the Gemara, you're allowed to open the Sefer Torah and read from it. So the Gemara says, Pshita. Why did I borrow your Sefer Torah if I can't read from it? Obviously, I borrowed it to read from it. You're right. Sefer Torah, it's the end. That do not learn that for the very first time. Because when you learn something for the very first time, it takes more time. You're going to spit at it. You're going to do all sorts of things and ruin it. And when you... what? Are we already? Oh, it's an hour. But we have no choice. We have to keep on going. It's going to be a little bit over an hour. No, what are you going to do? What?
8 seconds.
Have a wonderful... No. What time is it in Baltimore right now? Oh, so it's 4:26 for me and my wife. And Victor Fold. No wonder I'm in a great mood. In the morning. It's 4 something in the morning. It doesn't happen automatically. You just go to another country and all of a sudden it's not 4 o'clock. It is 4 o'clock for us. Okay. Says Gemara real quick. So we'll go to the 2 dots. Not these 2 dots, the 4th 2 dots from here. Fine. As the Gemara, if a guy tells you to watch the Sefer Torah, what right do you have to use his object? He told you to watch it. He didn't tell you to use it. And another question, it says that if you open up the Sefer Torah for your own self, you're not allowed to read from it. You said specifically you're allowed to open it up and read from it. Says the Gemara, this is what I meant. If when he unrolls it to ear it out, and all of a sudden you say, "Oh, look, there's a beautiful pasuk here," then you're allowed to read from it. But if you opened it up specifically to learn from it, that's also. Let's see this. Okay. So I'll show this to you. Skip ahead. What does Simcha say? Simcha says, B'chadash, if it's brand new, every 30 days you have to open it. B'yashin shleimus l'chaydash, you see on the left side, if it's brand new, chadash, it's 30 days. If it's old, it's 12 months. Does anybody see a problem with the two right columns? The right column and the middle column. Tanna Kama says, it basically says the same exact thing over and over, right? Tanna Kama says, if it's brand new, 12 months, if it's old, 12 months. Reb Elazar ben Yaakov, Ravi, Reb Elazar ben Yaakov says, brand new, 12 months, old, 12 months. So there's absolutely no difference between Tanna Kama and Reb Elazar ben Yaakov. That's what the Gemara is going to ask now. Reb Elazar ben Yaakov, both new and old is 12 months. Reb Elazar ben Yaakov had a Tanna Kama. They're saying the exact same thing as Tanna Kama. Let's see. See, these four boxes are identical. Says Gemara, take a look at the chart. Reb Elazar ben Yaakov is going to change now from 12 months to 30 days. So now there's a big difference. Tanna Kama says old and new every 12 months you have to open it up. Reb Elazar ben Yaakov says old and new every 30 days. And Simcha makes a compromise. If it's new, it's 30 days. If it's old, it's 12 months. Rabbi, have a wonderful day.